The late spring air hung heavy over Elmwood, a tight-knit community where secrets were as rare as strangers. On May 17, 1971, that delicate balance shattered with the disappearance of Cheryl Matthews and Pamela Reynolds, two inseparable friends who seemed to embody the town's youthful spirit. Cheryl, 19, was the daughter of local schoolteacher Margaret Matthews. She was known for her quick wit and dreams of becoming a journalist, always carrying a small notebook where she scribbled observations about the town. Pamela, 18, was the more reserved of the two, working part-time at her father's hardware store and planning to attend community college in the fall. The morning they vanished began like any other. Margaret remembered Cheryl leaving early, mentioning plans to meet Pamela for a morning coffee at the local diner. By noon, when neither girl had returned home, worry began to spread like wildfire through Elmwood's narrow streets. Sheriff Robert Kilmer was the first to mobilize. A veteran lawman with 20 years of service, he understood small-town dynamics. "Something's not right," he told his deputy, Frank Morrison. The initial search began methodically, checking known hangouts, questioning local businesses, tracing the girls' last known movements. As hours turned into days, the community's initial concern morphed into something darker. Search parties formed, combing through the surrounding woods, farmlands, and abandoned buildings. Volunteers brought dogs, flashlights, and a growing sense of desperation. The town's calm facade cracked, revealing raw, collective anxiety. Local rumors began to circulate. Some whispered about a drifter who had been seen near town weeks earlier. Others recalled strange occurrences: a mysterious car parked on back roads, unexplained sounds in the night. The town's gossip mill worked overtime, spinning theories more intricate with each passing day. The primary suspect emerged quickly: Thomas Garrett, a reclusive farmer living on the outskirts of Elmwood. In his mid-50s, Garrett had a reputation for being antisocial. Previous minor infractions, mostly related to boundary disputes and occasional confrontations with neighbors, made him an easy target for suspicion. Sheriff Kilmer brought Garrett in for questioning. The interrogation was tense, with Garrett maintaining a stoic demeanor. He had an alibi for the day of the disappearance, documented work at his farm, confirmed by neighboring farmers. Despite intensive questioning, no concrete evidence linked him directly to Cheryl and Pamela's disappearance. The girls' families bore the weight of uncertainty differently. Margaret Matthews became a shadow of herself, alternating between desperate hope and paralyzing grief. She would spend hours looking out her living room window, as if willing her daughter to materialize from the landscape. Pamela's parents, the Reynoldses, took a more proactive approach, plastering the town and surrounding areas with missing person posters. Weeks turned into months, and the investigation's momentum began to wane. The FBI was briefly involved, but eventually scaled back their efforts. Physical searches became less frequent, and hope began to dim. The town of Elmwood learned to live with the absence, a phantom pain that lingered just beneath the surface of daily life. By 1972, the case had effectively gone cold. Cheryl and Pamela became a cautionary tale, whispered about by parents to their children, a local legend that warned of the dangers lurking beyond the town's safe boundaries. Years passed. The original investigators retired. Families aged. The town continued, carrying the weight of the unresolved mystery like a collective scar. Younger generations knew the story, but felt it as a distant echo, a tragedy that belonged to another time. In the local diner, in barbershop conversations, the disappearance remained a topic of hushed speculation. What really happened to those girls? Became a question that hung in Elmwood's air. unanswered, and increasingly hopeless. Little did the town know that 40 years later, a chance discovery would breathe new life into this decades-old mystery. The Chevrolet Impala, sitting in a distant scrapyard, held secrets that would soon unravel the threads of this long-forgotten tragedy. The scrapyard stretched out like a metallic graveyard, rows of rusted vehicles standing as silent witnesses to decades of automotive history. Harry Simmons moved between the rows, his weathered hands tracing the contours of abandoned cars, each telling a story of forgotten journeys. At 68, Harry was no ordinary retiree. His passion for automotive restoration had been a lifeline after his wife's passing 5 years earlier. The rhythmic work of bringing old machines back to life kept memories of loneliness at bay. Today, something felt different. The moment he spotted the 1969 Chevrolet Impala, a strange electricity ran through his calloused fingers. The car was a time capsule. Midnight blue paint still held a hint of its original luster, despite years of neglect. As Harry ran his hand along the fender, he noticed something peculiar. A series of shallow scratches near the trunk, almost like someone had desperately tried to leave a mark. "Something's not right about you," he muttered, more to himself than the car. With practiced movements, Harry popped the trunk. The musty smell of aged fabric and something indefinably older wafted out. Nestled among years of accumulated debris were items that immediately caught his attention. A worn leather-bound journal, several faded photographs, and a bundle of clothing that looked decades old. The photographs were the first to demand his scrutiny. Black and white images of two young women, one with a determined journalist's smile, the other more reserved, but equally striking. Their faces seemed hauntingly familiar, triggering a memory from decades past. Cheryl Matthews and Pamela Reynolds. The names emerged from the depths of his memory, a whisper from Elmwood's most enduring mystery. Harry remembered the summer of 1971, the tension that had gripped the town, the countless rumors, and the heartbreak of two families torn apart by an unexplained disappearance. The clothing was carefully preserved, almost deliberately hidden. A blue blouse with a small tear near the collar, a pair of jeans with mud-caked edges. Each item seemed to carry a silent story, waiting to be uncovered. At first, Harry hesitated. These weren't just random items. They felt like evidence. But evidence of what? A lifetime of respecting local law enforcement guided his next move. Within hours, he was sitting across from Detective Sarah Reyes at the Elmwood Police Department, the mysterious items laid out between them. "Where did you find these?" Detective Reyes asked, her professional demeanor masking a growing sense of intrigue. Harry explained the scrapyard, the Impala, the careful way he'd preserved everything. Reyes listened intently, her fingers carefully examining the photographs. "These could be nothing," she warned, "or they could be something significant." Forensic testing would tell the real story. DNA analysis, modern technology that didn't exist in 1971, could potentially unlock secrets long buried. A week later, the results arrived. The clothing samples matched DNA profiles of Cheryl Matthews and Pamela Reynolds. Not just similar, an exact genetic match. The investigation reignited instantly. The cold case that had haunted Elmwood for 40 years suddenly pulsed with new life. Old witness statements were reviewed, geographical searches planned, and the long-deceased suspect, Thomas Garrett, became the focal point of a renewed inquiry. For Harry, the discovery was more than just solving a mystery. It was about bringing closure to a town that had carried an unresolved wound for decades. The Chevrolet Impala, once just another rusting relic, had become a bridge between past and present. As news spread through Elmwood, whispers turned to conversations. The families of Cheryl and Pamela, now elderly themselves, held onto a fragile hope. Something had changed. The darkness might finally be giving way to light. Little did they know, the most shocking revelation was yet to come. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across Thomas Garrett's abandoned farm as Detective Sarah Reyes and Harry Simmons carefully searched the weathered barn. Dust motes danced in the golden light, settling on decades of accumulated debris. Harry's weathered hands trembled slightly as he moved old wooden crates and rusted farm equipment, each movement deliberate and hopeful. "Here," he called out, his voice breaking the oppressive silence. Wedged between a rotting support beam and an old toolbox, a yellowed envelope caught his attention. Sarah approached, her professional demeanor softening as she carefully extracted the fragile document. The letter, written in Cheryl Matthews's distinctive handwriting, was dated just days after her and Pamela's initial disappearance. The paper crackled as Sarah unfolded it, her eyes scanning the neat, slightly shaky script. "Dear Mom and Dad," the letter began, "if you're reading this, it means we've found a way to escape. Thomas Garrett tried to keep us captive, but Pamela found a way to unlock the cellar door. We're scared, but we're together, and we're going to find help." The implications were profound. Cheryl's words revealed that the girls had not been passive victims, but had actively fought for their freedom. Harry leaned closer, his breath catching in his throat. "They escaped," he whispered, a mixture of hope and sorrow coloring his words. The forensic team meticulously processed the letter and the surrounding area. DNA evidence confirmed Cheryl's handwriting, and trace elements matched the clothing found in the Chevrolet Impala. Yet, the ultimate mystery remained. What happened to Cheryl and Pamela after their escape? News of the discovery spread quickly through Elmwood. At the local diner, where generations had shared coffee and gossip, conversations buzzed with renewed energy. Martha Reynolds, Pamela's elderly mother, listened as her brother read the letter to her, tears streaming down her weathered cheeks. "They were brave," she said softly. "My Pamela always was stronger than anyone knew." In the weeks that followed, the investigation continued, but leads remained frustratingly scarce. Satellite imagery, historical records, and extensive searches yielded nothing concrete about the girls' ultimate fate. They had vanished like ghosts, leaving behind only fragments of their story. Harry found himself increasingly invested in the mystery. The 1969 Chevrolet Impala, now carefully preserved as evidence, became more than just a vehicle. It was a symbol of hope, of resilience, of a story half told. During a community meeting at the Elmwood Town Hall, Detective Reyes presented their findings. "While we cannot definitively say what happened to Cheryl and Pamela after their escape," she explained, "we now know they were not passive victims. They fought. They survived, at least for a time." The revelation brought a complex mixture of emotions to the town. Relief mingled with lingering grief, hope intertwined with unresolved pain. The families of Cheryl and Pamela, who had lived with uncertainty for 40 years, finally had a glimpse of their loved one's courage. For Harry, the discovery represented something deeply personal. The mechanic who had spent his life restoring forgotten machines had, in a way, helped restore a forgotten story. The Chevrolet Impala, once just another rusting relic in a scrapyard, had become a vessel of truth. As autumn approached Elmwood, the town began to heal. The mystery hadn't been completely solved, but the darkness had been pushed back, if only a little. Cheryl and Pamela were no longer just missing persons. They were remembered as survivors. In the local museum, a small exhibit was curated. The Chevrolet Impala stood as its centerpiece, surrounded by photographs, the discovered letter, and mementos that told a story of unexpected courage. A plaque read, "Sometimes hope is found in the fragments we leave behind." The story of Cheryl and Pamela would continue to be whispered in Elmwood, a testament to the human spirit's capacity to resist, to hope, and to survive against impossible odds. Harry would often visit the museum, standing before the Impala, remembering how a chance discovery had brought light to a decades-old darkness. And though the full truth remained elusive, the community had found something precious: the knowledge that even in the most desperate moments, resilience can prevail.